This is not a matrix created by an alien civilization out to enslave us. It is something that we created with our mental chatter and mental models. We do not live in a real world. We live in a construct. Observe your mental chatter, don't become your mental chatter. My question is, would you rather be pushed by great pain or pulled by grand vision? If you have even the vague glimmer of realization of what you just articulated, that is a clear sign of grace that has been showered on you.
Okay, our guest on the show today is a man who I think is very effective in popularizing ancient wisdom, translating it into sort of normal person speak, even business speak. He's done a TED talk, he's written some great books. Of the 1,000 speakers at the Embodiment Conference, he's one of, if not the most downloaded. When I looked at the back end, I thought, he seems incredibly popular. And that mix of ancient wisdom and sort of fun and stories, and his business background as well, coaching background, lots more I can say. But Dr. Srikumar Rao, welcome.
Thank you, Mark. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
Let's dive into the deep end. What makes people happy and unhappy?
Okay, I've got to give you a little background to explain that, Mark. We do not live in a real world. This is very important. Bear in mind, we do not live in a real world. We live in a construct. And this is a construct we create with our mental chatter and mental models, and I'll get to that shortly. It's as if we're all in the matrix. But this is not a matrix created by an alien civilization out to enslave us. It is something that we created with our mental chatter and mental models. And having created it, we then experience it exactly as we have created it. Now, let me ask you a question. Can you remember any time when you went out on a social occasion, maybe a vacation, dinner with a friend, or something like that, but you were totally unable to concentrate on that because something big happened to you, business wise or otherwise, and you were all concerned about, now, how am I going to deal with this situation?
Sure.
So, ostensibly, you're having dinner with a friend, which should be an enjoyable occasion, but in reality, you were someplace else.
Yeah, many times I'm with my mum or my niece or my sister, and my phone's beeping, or I'm looking at my phone agitated and not really present with them. That's
We
definitely
are
happened.
always somewhere else. This is not a one time occasion. We're always somewhere else. Sometimes we're that somewhere else so strongly that our present is obliterated. But otherwise, we're always somewhere else. You're going to watch a movie and you're already thinking in terms of what am I going to have for dinner. Okay? That is what causes the unhappiness in our life. Let me introduce you to a powerful quotation from Mark Twain, which is both very funny and very profound. He said, I have suffered a great many tragedies in my life, most of which never happened. Funny, but also profound. So,
Mm.
going back to your question, why are we unhappy? We are unhappy because we've constructed these alternate worlds which we live in. We do not live in the real world. And we do not recognize that we are living in this alternate world. And that is the root of all of our sorrows. So the solution is easy, but it requires consistent work on your part. And don't expect that the solution is going to be implemented and pop up tomorrow. But if you pay careful attention to what I'm saying, you will find in a short time, certainly within a month, your experience of life will be a whole lot better. And here is that method. Observe your mental chatter. Imagine that you're an invisible entity suspended 6 inches above your head, and you're noting everything that happens in a completely non judgmental way. Here is Mark interviewing another guest. Mark hopes that this guest will have a podcast that is massively downloaded, and This podcast will then get others to recommend, hey, you ought to go onto Mark's podcast because, it's phenomenal and your numbers will increase. All that is an alternate scenario that you're building up in your head so fast you don't even recognize you're doing it. Detach yourself. Be the observer of your mental chatter. Don't be your mental chatter. Don't let it grab you by the neck and pull you along with it. And when you do that, you'll find that any situation, no matter how bad, becomes much, much, much less intense in terms of its demand for you. And if you persist with this exercise, you'll find that gradually instances of pure joy, pure happiness, uncaused by anything, start creeping into your life. It's a very powerful exercise. It's very simple, but it does require constant attention and effort on your part.
So are you recommending people have a sort of daily meditation practice or little pauses throughout the day? Because
No,
what I
daily
notice
meditation.
is it's sort of going, and then before I know what's happening, it's running the show.
No, no, it really, this is where the mistake that most people make. They say, oh, my life, it's full of stress, full of tension. What I've got to do is I've got to set up a meditation practice. So I'm going to get up early in the morning and meditate for a half hour every day. Or I'll have a morning and an evening meditation. And I'll go to a Vipassana retreat or something like that. Those are all useful. I'm not knocking them. By all means, do it. But the notion that you're going to do that and life is going to get magically better is flawed. You've spent your entire life running this, letting this demon, the mental chatter, run your life, that you're not going to be able to get a handle on it, to control it by a meditation practice, which is restricted in time. Your entire life has to become a meditation. Let me repeat that, Mark. Your entire life has to become a meditation, which means that this is not something that you meditate on in the morning. It means that you're constantly keeping it in mind no matter what you're doing. Observe your mental chatter, don't become your mental chatter. Do it when you are working, do it when you're taking a shower, do it when you're brushing your teeth, do it when you're talking to your partner, do it when you're correcting your children, all the time. You're going to forget. You're going to forget numerous, numerous, numerous times. But ultimately, if you continue doing it, each time you forget, you come back to that, you will find that you grow more and more steady in being the observer. You're observing your mental chatter, not being pulled away by it.
And
That's
it's
when you'll start seeing the benefit of what I've just recommended.
That makes sense. Thank you. Yeah. And it is often phenomenally rude mental chatter. I thought it was just mine. Then I talked to, coaching clients and they said the same thing. And you tell a nice story about a woman who goes on a date and then she comes
Yes.
back from a date and
Mm.
a friend says, you're like, well, of course he didn't like you. You were fat and you wore this silly dress and you said stupid things. And we would regard that as just a horrible friend. No one, if you had a friend like that, hopefully you don't have friends like that. And yet our own mind is sort of the kind of saying things like that fairly regularly. I think it's not just me. I think it's almost every person I've coached.
Absolutely correct. That is Buddha's parable of the second arrow. And the important thing to recognize is that the second arrow is always delivered by mental chatter. And perhaps it's a good idea to define mental chatter. Mental chatter
Mhm.
is that internal monologue that you have going on all the time. It's very, very, very prevalent. It begins right up from the time you get up in the morning, is with you throughout the day, is with you right now when you ought to be listening to my chatter instead of your chatter. But already you've gone off to, is it true? What is mental chatter? Do I have mental chatter? That's mental chatter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always there. And it is running our life. And in many cases, it's ruining our life.
Makes sense. What's the role of the body in this? Obviously, we're not our mental chatter. If we can be aware of it, we're something else. How does the body fit into this?
The short answer, Mark, now you're taking us into very deep waters very, very, very quickly. It's not a gradual sloping of the beach into the sea, it's a cliff dive to $1 million. The role of the body is simply there. It does not really exist. It is an illusion. I told you we're going into very, very deep waters.
Go for it.
Look, Mark, let's say you go to bed at night and you dream. And in that dream, you have a horrible nightmare. Freddy Krueger is after you, and he's got a sharp claw, sharp knife claws out, and you're running, and you don't want to fall afoul of Freddy Krueger. And he chases you, and he slashes at you, and he doesn't quite deal a death blow, but he does scratch you deeply. You're bleeding, and you run even faster because you're bleeding, and then all of a sudden you trip over something and fall and hit your head against the door jam, and it's so painful that you wake up. And then you wake up and say, it was all a dream. In exactly the same way, your body, the world you're living in, with political dysfunction and war and famine and all kinds of horrible things happening, is just like that. It's a dream. You don't recognize that it's a dream until you wake up. When you were being chased by Freddy Krueger, it felt awfully real to you. It's only when you experience that fall and sharp pain that you woke up. In exactly the same way, what the mystics tell you is this world that you're in, so full of sorrow, is just like that. It's like a dream. And if you're bothered by it, you got to wake up. Because let me go further. In your dream, when Freddy Krueger was chasing you, it felt very real, didn't it? Of course it did. In exactly the same way, this world feels very real, but it's equally untrue. And you know it's untrue because you can use your logic to understand this. Only that is real, which always is. Right, Mark? Can you agree to that?
I'm not sure if I do agree with that you're saying that something's only real if it's permanent. I think something can be
Something
real and not
is
permanent.
only that is real, which always is. By that standard, Mark Walsh is not all real because he comes and he goes. Sometimes he metamorphoses into a guy who's being chased by Freddy Krueger, and sometimes he goes into deep sleep, and then there's nothing, right? The Mark Walsh who's being chased by Freddy Krueger is not real because he also comes and goes. Sometimes he metamorphoses into Mark the podcaster. The only thing that is always there, Mark, is your awareness that you exist. I am. That is always there with you. That is who you really are. That is reality. So, in reply to your question, how does the body fit into all of this? That is the programming that we have been stuck under and into, and this programming has been going on for many decades, maybe many lifetimes. A wonderful purpose for this human existence is to get rid of that illusion. And you get rid of the illusion by constantly observing your mental chatter. Remember, even when I said observe the mental chatter, that's only the tip of the iceberg. Because as long as you're observing your mental chatter, there's still two of you. There's you who's the observer, and there's mental chatter that's out there, and you're observing it. That creates a duality. But all the mystics tell us, all the world's great wisdom traditions tell us, you are not this human body. You're not this body, mind, intellect complex. You're pure spirit. You're awareness. I am. Making that your lived visceral reality is the purpose of human existence. And that is when you find that your body, it's simply there. It's part of the illusion. In India, we have a term for it. We call it Maya, the great
Oh,
illusion.
yeah. Yeah, a friend with that name. I'm always joking that she's not real. Is there a risk in seeing everything as Maya that we don't improve the world?
Say that
Um, is there a risk in seeing everything as Maya or illusion that we say, hey, this is just a dream, it's not really real, that we don't improve the world? I've seen around some sort of spiritual people a kind of apathy for things in the world because it's all just in a dream anyway.
Correct.
What's your thoughts on that?
Uh, that is a very common criticism that has been leveled. And in fact, it's been leveled against India as a country and a civilization. Oh, no wonder India hasn't got anywhere. They're so apathetic. They say everything is a dream and how does it matter? That is a grossly incorrect understanding of the law of karma and Indian philosophy of Advaita. Yes, everything is a dream, but you have a role to play in that dream. And unless you're a fully enlightened being like Ramana Maharshi, like Jesus, like Buddha, or so on, unless you're a fully enlightened being, that is an intellectual understanding and not your lived reality. As long as you only have an intellectual understanding of that, you have to play the game. So if you see there is suffering, it's your job to go out and alleviate that suffering. But even as you're working your level best to alleviate that suffering, even as you're doing the very best you can to right what you see is wrong in the world, you simultaneously, in parallel, carry on. I know this is all an illusion, but I have to do my bit in that illusion. You know, people talk about Abraham Lincoln as a great orator, and when they talk about him being a great orator, typically they're thinking about the Gettysburg Address, 407 years ago, and so on. That's a great, great, speech. I'm not downplaying it at all. But in his second inaugural, he says something which is very powerful and very relevant to you and me and all of the listeners of this podcast. He said, with malice towards none, with charity for all, I will do the right as God gives me to see the right. Remember, he doesn't say he'll do the right. He says, I will do the right as God gives me to see the right. What God gives me to see the right tomorrow may be very different from what he gives me to see the right today, in which case tomorrow I will do the right as he gives me to see the right tomorrow. That's your role in life, Mark. You see unhappiness, you need suffering. Oh, this is bothering me. I will do what I can. I will do whatever is in my power to help make that better. And whatever happens, happens. I'm not saying I'm doing the right thing. I'm saying I'm going to do the right things as God gives me to see the right.
So we've gone quite deep already, which is
Yes,
fantastic,
you've
into
gone very
Indian.
deep.
We have. It's right at the deep end, Indian philosophy. I'm imagining when you talk to business groups, how does this go down? I mean, you did, was it a PhD at Columbia in business?
Yes,
Like
I did my
you're,
PhD in Columbia, and when I'm talking to business groups, I do not mention this
uh
because until you've had a certain amount of preparation before, this will appear complete hogwash. I'm not real. What do you mean I'm not real? I'm here, aren't I? Let me hit you on
yeah.
the hammer with a hammer on the head, and then you tell me whether I'm real or not. So a conversation always devolves to that level. So unless somebody has had the preparatory work, and in my course, Creativity and Personal Mastery, and in my personal coaching program with the clients that I work with, I lead them up to the point where I don't tell them this, they experience it themselves. And many of my clients have come back and said, you're right. The world isn't real. It is real because I believe it's real.
And you think that perspective has been helpful to sort of the MBA students you've worked with? It's been a hugely popular course, right?
Yeah, okay, we've got to draw a distinction here, Mark. I have taught in many of the top business schools in the world: Columbia Business School, London Business School, Berkeley, Kellogg, Imperial College, and my course has been among the most popular and highest rated. But I don't go into this depth and this detail in my course because not everybody is ready to take that journey.
Mm.
So in my course, I give them practical strategies for reducing stress in their life, for making better decisions, for having a considerably superior experience of life. But there is a small number of people who say, this is all very good and it works in spades. That's why my course is so popular. But there's something deeper in here. And that something deeper is the whole purpose of existence. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What is this all about? And they're ready to go on that journey of exploration. And those are the people with whom I go into in greater detail as we did. But it has to be a gradual process. I don't spring it on them suddenly as I did right now, because
Time
you
in.
sparked it by setting off that conversation. And even now, among the people who are listening to the podcast, some will be saying, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" And some will be going, "Yes, yes, this is what I've been looking for. This is the truth." And the
Mm.
persons who feel at a deep level, "Yes, this resonates with me," those are the ones I invite to reach out to become my coaching client, take my programs, or something like that.
Mm. Are there people you particularly enjoy teaching? You've had very varied experience.
I very much enjoy teaching, but I enjoy teaching this. Previously, in my previous incarnation, I was a marketing professor teaching courses on marketing research and consumer behavior and so on. And I must confess, it was a job. I did not enjoy it at all. Now I love what I do, particularly when I'm talking to an engaged audience and people are interested in going on this journey. Oh,
I was
that's it. I
I,
love that.
I read some of your books and listened to quite a few of your talks before I put you into ChatGPT today, and it told me you did the marketing for The Exorcist. Did it get it wrong? Is it thinking of? I actually thought maybe it's made a mistake here. You know, I don't
That was
trust
more than 50 years
ChatGPT.
ago, Mark, so don't hold it against
I
me.
won't. I won't. My dad loved that film, but it's. I mean, that's. I was just actually checking if it was correct or not. Okay, sometimes you talk about extreme resilience. What is extreme resilience? I think it sounds like something we could all do with today.
Oh, we can certainly do with that. Resilience is your ability to bounce back from adversity. And these days, it's priced so highly that even when you have job opening listings for very senior executives, including CEOs, somewhere in there is "must be resilient." Extreme resilience is when you bounce back from adversity so quickly that an external observer might not even know that you had suffered an adverse event. So, resilience is good, extreme resilience is a whole lot better. And that's what I, endeavor to coach my clients to become.
Okay, how do I do that? That sounds good.
Yes, it does sound good, doesn't it, Mark? Okay. So, Mark, I'd like you to consider something. Whenever an event happens, any event, it does not cause suffering. Tomorrow's there's some kind of a cataclysmic event, and for whatever reason, all of your hardware has been reduced to junk. You've lost your entire list of podcasts. Your subscriber list has kind of vanished, and you can't get it back, and you're at square zero. Okay, so now you have a lot of spare time. But you're at square zero and say, "Oh my God, what's going to happen? How am I going to make my living? I had such a flourishing podcast business. How am I going to resuscitate that? This is terrible." And the moment you say this is terrible, at that instant, suffering begins. Suffering doesn't begin when this horrible event happens, it begins the moment you say, "Oh my God, this is terrible. I can't bear it." Is that correct?
Yes, for sure. I mean, and often things start bad and end up being good, then go bad again. The old parable about that. You know,
Exactly.
COVID happened. I thought it was terrible. It ended up being the best thing for our online business, and then the success from that ended up being the worst thing for me personally. And then something came out of that that was good. I mean, it seems to be how
You
life
got
works.
just asking yourself the question, don't label this thing that happened terrible. Just ask yourself, I'm about to label this terrible, but can I think of any scenario whatsoever by which this could turn out to be a great thing? And if you can perceive such a scenario, ask yourself the next question: what can I do proactively to actually make it good? And all of a sudden, you've gone seamlessly from the realm of despair to the realm of possibility. That's how you become extremely resilient. You're constantly observing your mental chatter. And the moment it's about to label something, "Oh my God, this is so terrible," you steer it into the alternate. pathway, which is there any possible scenario by which this could be terrific instead of terrible? And what can I do to make it terrific instead of terrible? And
Yeah.
lo and behold, you
Yeah.
you
Often.
never become depressed, you never become dejected, you
Mhm.
never face adversity because you never label anything that happens adversity. You simply label it this happened.
Yeah.
This is one
And there
of
was
the
a study on trauma.
discoveries. This is one of the
Go for it.
discoveries that Viktor Frankl made, by the way,
Mhm.
because he was in horrific situations, as you know, and he wondered why is it that in such situations of extreme deprivation, some people flourish and some people go to pieces. And that was the basis of his entire life work, which is detailed in Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah. Great book. Mhm. And I've noticed this even with traumatized people. And if you ask them, would you eventually, in time with healing, not straight away, and you wouldn't force this on anyone, but if you ask them, would you like the trauma not to have happened? Something like 90% of people with a certain amount of time will say no, no, because it's made me who I am, something's come out of it. And again, not to force that on anyone, particularly prematurely, but that seems to be where sort of 90% of people with trauma end up, I've found.
Absolutely. In fact, let me share something with you. There is a tradition in India, particularly in South India and Tamil Nadu, of a group of people who are collectively known as the poet saints. Okay? And a very frequent refrain with the poet saints is they're playing, "Oh God, let me suffer without end, bring on suffering for me all the time. And you haven't given me enough suffering, please pile it on, give me more." And the reasoning behind that is when I'm suffering, I'm constantly thinking of the Lord. But when I'm not suffering and things are good, then I forget to think about God. So if I'm suffering all the time, it's good. Now, that, as I said, is a train of thought. There have been many realized beings who have come out of that tradition, and I honor them for it. So it is true that this can happen with extreme suffering. It is not a policy that I advocate. If you're in the human condition, suffering will happen. If suffering does happen, you use it as a tool to help you on your journey. But I certainly don't go out saying, I want more suffering. My question is, would you rather be pushed by great pain or pulled by grand vision? And I think it's a much better idea to be pulled by grand vision rather than pushed by great pain.
Mm. What gets you up in the morning at this point? What's that pull for you?
There's a wonderful book that I recommend to everyone called Way of the Pilgrim. And the Way of the Pilgrim basically talks about this person. Nobody knows who the pilgrim was, but he roamed about Siberia in the late 19th century, and the only thing he had was a torn woolen coat and a copy of the Bible and the Philokalia. He had a dislocated shoulder and nobody to show it to, so he lived with the pain. But despite that, he was in a state of indescribable spiritual exaltation. So when I read descriptions of that, when I read his journal, when I read such things as the autobiography of St. Teresa of Avila, or the Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence, or the Confessions of St. Augustine, it shows me what those beings were. When I read the life of Ramana Maharshi, you know, and it tells me what a gap there is. And the thought that, I'm actively on a path to realize in a vivid way the teachings of these great sages. That's what is increasingly keeping me going.
Mm.
I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid. This is an illusory world. Don't get caught up in the ups and downs of this illusory world.
There's a dangerous word, if. You point to this in some of your stories as well. That I remember once when I was a child, I really wanted this Christmas present. I thought I'll be happy when I get this Christmas present.
Yes,
When or
absolutely.
if I get this, I'll be happy. And of
We're
course, I
always
got it. I was
correct.
happy for a few minutes, and then I realized, oh,
Bang on, Mark, and you're absolutely right. And the short answer to your question is I fully recognize that. I am in that, and I recognize that I am in that, and I'm just playing the game. And more, I'm happy just playing the game. Even the desire for liberation is a desire.
Uh-huh. I wonder why it's not common to see through that. Because I remember as a child sort of getting that Christmas present and sort of realizing, at least at some level, not claiming any big enlightenment, but certainly on some level going, oh, getting what you want doesn't last long. And I see people in life and they might go from sweets when they're a kid to toys, and then it's girls, and then it's money, and then it's having kids, and then it's just being able to sit on the toilet without pain, and it's sort of it's just and it
Right.
just sort of moves the target. So I
I
wonder
know.
why that isn't obvious, because it's sort of clearly it's a moving target.
Now, that is a good question, Mark. And let me give you Anthony de Mello's response to that one. If you have even the vague glimmer of realization of what you just articulated, that is a clear sign of grace that has been showered on you. There is no explanation for this. There is no why did this happen. It is grace. You did nothing to deserve it. It happened. Be grateful and don't let that grace go to waste. Follow it. Work on waking up. Because the vast, overwhelming majority of people, as you know, don't have any inkling of this. And if you were to suggest or mention this to them, they won't understand what you're talking about.
Mm, mm. Often people say to me, I don't know what to do in my life. What's my life purpose? Lots of coaches on that. What's your thoughts on finding life purpose?
There is no life purpose. We go around, and I get this all the time. I used to get it in business school. Professor, I want to find meaning and purpose in my life. How can I find meaning in my life? You talk about meaning and purpose if they were like seashells on the beach. You're going for a walk, and all of a sudden, there's my meaning. It doesn't work like that. You don't have meaning, you don't have purpose, you create it. And initially, you go at a very lower gross level. Oh, my purpose is to help other people become better, to ameliorate things in this world where so many things are wrong, quote unquote. But later on, you realize that the purpose of life is to be. All our life, we're being something. I'm being a great podcaster. I'm being a best selling author. I'm being an international executive coach. Don't be something, just be, which is one of the toughest things that you can do. I was interviewing Rameshwar Das, who was a longtime colleague of Ram Das, and he was also a disciple of Neem Karoli Baba, and asked him, hey, what's the benefit you got from all of this teaching and hanging out with these people? And he thought for a while and he said, I went from being the center of the universe to being a grain of sand on a beach.
Hmm.
And that is profound. Don't be someone, just be. And you'll find that life flows effortlessly and things happen, but you're not doing it.
Mm, mm. Seems like thinking in spiritual ways, meditation, as you mentioned, spirituality generally, in my lifetime has grown in the West hugely. It's become far more acceptable to talk about in a business school. I mean, 20 years ago, I first worked in business and I talked about mindfulness, and people would freak out and they'd tell me about a bad experience, or they'd think it was some weird thing. Do you think that popularization has done any good, or is it too shallow? What's your sense of that?
Uh, once again, I don't try to judge it. I don't know. I simply say that, the world is functioning perfectly fine. There is some higher entity, call it God, call it the universe, call it whatever you are, that is running it. And therefore, all is perfect. All is
Nice.
well. So, whatever happening is the perfect thing that could be happening, and everything is as it should be. So, I don't even bother to ask myself the question that you just articulated. It is.
Mm,
Stop trying to figure it out, because every time you figure it out, you're using your thinking mind, and your thinking mind is the problem.
mm. Let's talk coaching. Lots of coaches listening to this. How does this apply for coaches?
Say that again.
How does this work you're describing apply to coaches?
Well, I've spoken to several gathering of coaches, and they all ask, how can I be a better coach? And my advice to all of them is don't try to be a better coach. Get out of your head the notion that you're a coach at all. In our conversation earlier, I said I was an international coach and I'm simply doing it for convenience. In my head, I am not a coach. I'm simply sharing some of the stuff, some of the insights that I have gained. And if it helps you, God bless you. And I'm willing to explore more to see if what I have to share can benefit you. And if it doesn't, and you think it's a waste of time, God bless you. And I wish you well on your journey. Get out of your head the notion that you're a coach, because the moment you think I am a coach, you're in some way setting yourself up on some kind of a pedestal where you're fixing this screwed up guy who doesn't understand it. That's detrimental to your own progress, and it's detrimental to the person you're interacting with. So don't think you're a coach, just think, here's something I found tremendously useful in my own life, and perhaps it could help you.
Yeah, I noticed you share a lot of sort of parables, stories. That seems like one way of teaching. Is it just for the joy of it, or do you find that more helpful than just telling people stuff or coaching them?
It's both. First of all, I enjoy doing that. And second of all, people always remember stories.
Yes.
I can't tell you the number of people who took my course 25 years ago and they come back and say, Dr. Rao, I'm so grateful I learned that from you because I use it every day. And generally, it's something like the good thing, bad thing fable. So I have two things. One, I have a story, and two, I have a pithy label like good thing, bad thing, who knows, that people
Right.
realize. And that is acts as a hook, if you will, to remind them, a shorthand.
Mm,
That's why I
mm,
do it.
mm.
And once again, I don't do it. It flows through me at the right
Affirmations, positive thinking. What are your thoughts on those two?
time. They are useful, but you will come to a point where you drop them because they're no longer useful. Most people who try affirmations feel that affirmations are not working and therefore they must be doing something wrong because they're using affirmations incorrectly. Let's say you're broke and you can't meet your credit card bills and you affirm, I am abundant, I have all the money in the world.
Yeah.
And underneath that, there's a little voice saying, but that's not true, you don't.
There's always that resistance. It doesn't, yeah, there's always a pushback.
So Emile Coué, who's the French physician who first popularized the notion of affirmations, and his original affirmation was every day in every way I'm getting better and better. He also had a caveat which most people don't know about or don't use, which is if you already have a preset belief that your affirmation is not true, it's not going to work. And that's something that they completely forget. So if you're going to use affirmations, use it with something that you can do. So if you're completely dead broke, don't say, I am abundant, I have all the money in the world. Make it a, today I'm going to do at least two things which will help me climb out of the fiscal mess that I'm in. And try it along those lines as opposed to, I am fully abundant and I'm a multi-billionaire about to buy my sixth yacht.
Yeah. I find when people are just pretending something isn't real, they're going against reality. And there's
If
always that
inside
part
you
of
there's
them's going, this is bullshit. You can always hear that.
when that happens, it's not going to work. Okay.
Mm, mm.
But a much better way is for someone to get a book, one of my books. I would say, Are You Ready to Succeed? Is probably the best one. And just systematically go through the exercises in there. And that will eventually bring them to the point where the affirmations do start working in their life because they'll be doing it correctly.
Can you give an example of one of those exercises just for a taste?
Oh, absolutely. I've already shared one with you, which is observe your mental chatter.
Hmm.
Don't be your mental. See, mental chatter is just there. It's like clouds in the sky. You go for a walk, you look up in the sky, there are clouds. You finish your walk, you look up in the sky, those clouds are gone, there are new clouds. Mental chatter is like that. Clouds in
And
the sky, they don't bother you.
do you
The
just
problem,
observe it, that differentiation, subject becomes object,
exactly.
but you don't try and change it at that point?
The problem is not that you have mental chatter. The problem is that you become your mental chatter. And when you become your mental chatter, all kinds of bad things happen in your life.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to be ruthlessly vigilant to observe your mental chatter, not be your mental chatter.
Well, mine, I'm from an Irish family. Mine just comes out of my mouth, and then my girlfriend tells me if it's right or wrong. So, that fixes it fairly quickly. I mean, maybe we should talk about culture. You've been originally from Delhi, right? But you've been in the
Uh,
United States for quite
no,
some time.
no, no, no. I was originally from Bangalore. That's where my roots
Bangalore,
are.
excuse me.
But though that's where my roots are, I grew up all over North India. So that's Delhi, Calcutta, Ahmedabad, and Bombay, Rangoon, and so on. And then I came to America.
And it'd be quite a few years now. I mean, how do you find the difference in relating to these things, for example, of happiness or success between the United States and India?
Actually, all of my experience with that has been in the United States because, I left India when all of these concepts were alien to me. And if I had met myself now when I was young, I would have dismissed me as a total lunatic.
Mm,
So,
mm. I mean, some of the cultural differences must stand out to you, though. Is there anything in your
say
time
that
there?
again?
If do none of the cultural differences stand out in regard to these things, even though you've mostly worked in the US?
No, I still don't get it. Please repeat your question.
Uh, what cultural differences have you seen in regard to any of this content? Even though
Okay.
if you're living and working in the US primarily, I still imagine there's some
The
observations there.
major difference I've noticed is that in India, there is a cultural understanding of there are other layers of consciousness, there are other worlds.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
even if people don't actively believe that, it has subliminally seeped in because, that's the culture. In America, there is a this is it, this is real.
Right.
And that is very, very, very difficult for them to shake off. And this is so despite, many great thinkers like Schrodinger, for example, with his famous example of Schrodinger's cat. I'm sure you've run across that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
The
a
quantum.
perfect illustration of, is the world real or not? Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is a perfect illustration of nothing is real unless the observer is clued in, and things become real because the observer is there. In other words, you're really creating the universe. But for the common person to realize that, this is not something articulated by these, phenomenal physicists and great scientists, but this is something which is relevant to you in your personal life, that bridge is being crossed, but few people are on that bridge.
It's funny, quantum physics has been around for 100 years, but somehow it hasn't sunk into the culture so strongly. I mean, parts of culture perhaps.
That is accurate, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I work
Look,
with Indian
Einstein, he
colleagues.
proved beyond doubt that there is no space or time. There is only space time.
I think some of
So,
these ideas they're hard for me to get my head around because everything seems
exactly,
so, the
because
table
of
in
the
front of it all
conditioning
seems so
we've
real.
been subjected to. The great masters understood that clearly. That's why they said there is no time, there is only the eternal present.
Mm, mm. You've essentially your work is translating the great masters. Would that be fair, or making them
Yes,
accessible? Yeah.
making it more accessible, and I do the best job I can at translation, and obviously I muck it up, but I try to do the best I can. As Lincoln said, I will do the best as God gives me to see the right. So I do my best and to work along. And I'm very conscious that even when I'm doing all of this, what I'm really doing is I'm working on myself.
Hmm. Hmm. What's your self-work at this point in life?
At this point of my life, it is to be more of the observer more of the time and not get carried away. And it's incredibly tough. This is the journey of a lifetime, Mark.
Mm. Hmm. Anything you'd like to talk about before we close? We still have a little time, so if there's any sort of hot topics for you or things that are juicy for you.
Yeah. One tip that I can give, most people today feel more stress in their life than they've ever had. And when I ask them, what do you feel stress in your life? They have a bunch of reasons: financial pressures, relationship problems, children issues, oh, the world is in a mess, observation, things like that. And I'd like them to consider that none of this is true. The only reason you have stress in your life is you have a rigid idea of this is how the universe should unfold, and the universe is paying no attention to what you want in its own merry ways. And you resist it and you resent it, and in that resistance and resentment, you create the stress in your life. And that's the only reason you feel tension in your life.
God laughs at our plans, and we suffer in direct proportion to how much we resist what's going on, right?
Exactly correct.
Beautiful. Well, this has been deep. I feel like it's a nice place to leave it. Where do people find you, Dr. Rao, online?
Very easy. Go to my website. It's www.therawinstitute.com. Or they can, if they go to my website, www.therawinstitute.com, and register, they get my blog and information about my programs. They can also reach out to me directly. It's Srikumar, Srikumar, .Rao, Rao, at therawinstitute.com. They can go to YouTube and put my name in the search engine, and dozens, maybe hundreds of videos will pop up. They can listen to any that take their fancy.
Great. That's very generous. Dr. Rao, thanks for joining us.